Yeah. It's all right. Well, we'll kick off. We're off at 7 now. So, firstly, like as Nick said, Jace, thanks very much for coming on, mate. It's been some awesome couple of days so far. The parents and kids are really loving it. So we love that you've given us access to your home and I guess your insights. It's a bit of a hard time for everyone at the moment, not being able to do too much. But yeah, still really do appreciate you coming on. And yeah, hopefully, the boys and girls on here will get a heap out of it. I guess from our perspective, just to start, is just give us a bit of a background. I guess how you transitioned from being a junior and when you started playing to, did you make all the pathway sides, or what was your journey to get to, where you are now, having represented Australia and played cricket right around the world?
Yeah, so I grew up in Canberra, played all my junior cricket in Canberra, and like a lot of young kids, played at school with my mates, played in the backyard with my brother, and then gradually made my way up through the ranks. And originally playing junior cricket, I was more of a batter. Most people probably laugh at that now, considering how my batting's going at the moment. But I tried my hand at a bit of everything, so a little bit of wicket keeping along the way. But then we didn't have any left arm quicks, and we were mucking around at training, and I was bowling left arm, and the coach said, have you actually thought about bowling, being a bowler instead of a batter or anything else? And I said, well, not really. But long story short is I gave it a go and started to make some decent inroads, made the under-15s national team, then made the under-17s, and in the same year I made the first under-17s year. I also played in the under-19s, so that was something growing up in Canberra I was very fortunate with, that we got lots of opportunities to play for the ACT and the national carnivals. So I think I played maybe 3 under-17s and 3 under-19s.
Nice.
So I got a lot of exposure at a young age to the best competition going around, which was really fortunate for me to sort of fast track my development. And then basically straight out of my right age of 19, so I just turned 19, I got a call from WA to come and basically have a tryout over here in the West. So myself and Michael Hogan, who ended up playing a fair bit for WA, now plays over in the UK for Glamorgan. A couple of other guys were also down in Perth at the time, and we were bowling to Luke Ronke at the Wacker, and Tom Moody and Dennis Lilly were in having a watch and sort of checking out what was going on. And ever since then, it's been a bit of a roller coaster. I got a phone call 2 weeks later after that saying, we'd love to have you over in the West. And I packed my bags and got over as soon as I could. And I've been here about 10 years now.
That's awesome. So from that session or from that tryout, you got your rookie or you got a professional contract, or did you have to play from there, or bang straight away, here you go, thanks for coming sort of thing?
Yeah, straight away from that. So they basically told me in Perth at the time that they wanted to offer me a contract. It was a rookie contract to start with. But the timing, just in relation to the stuff I now know about in regards to MOU timings and contract timings and all those sort of things, they weren't physically able to offer me anything at that stage. So I had to wait for a few weeks.
Yeah.
So about 2 weeks down the track, they called me and said, yep, we can officially offer it to you now. And then, I was over in Perth and mixing it with the big boys, really. Like, went into the gym the first day I was there, and guys like Adam Voges, Marcus North, Sean Marsh, Brett Dorey, Steve McGoffin, all those guys were in the gym, and I was just thinking, I've come from being a relatively big fish in a small pond in the Canberra cricket comp to feeling like I was right in the thick of the bottom rung of everything going on, to be fair.
Yeah, having to sort of start again, so to speak, in that new level. We spoke with Shorty about that, how you dealt with, obviously having to go up a level every time. And I think that's something that even our kids in our programs and our academies and even the guys on here have to deal with. Was there anything in particular that, every time you went up a level, whether it be playing, your first second 11 game, first Shield game, first Australian game, anything that you sort of can give, I guess, as feedback or inspiration, or how do you deal with going up a level? Is there anything in particular from you?
Yeah, well, I got given some really, really good advice early on in my first class career. I can't actually remember who it was, but they said, you've been picked for a reason. Your skills are good enough. So back yourself and make sure you actually trust your skills. Because a lot of the time I get nervous anyway, and that's good. For me anyway, it shows that I care, and that's what makes me feel alive, I guess, out on the cricket pitch, knowing that I'm not just taking it for granted, but also letting my skill do the talking, so to speak, and knowing that I've done all the hard work. I've played cricket for the best part of 20 odd years now. So I've done enough to know that my skills are good enough and to back myself. And that's the biggest thing I can, I guess the advice that I'd give to anyone consistently trying to get better and also going up the ranks is that you've been picked for a reason. Either the coach or the selectors or whoever it is sees something in you. So keep backing yourself and keep trusting your skills.
Yeah, I love it. I guess from our perspective, sitting back, and I had a chat to you about, a couple of things that we wanted to get out of our initial chat. One of those is just, insight into training and workloads as a bowler. I think a lot of young players underestimate how taxing it can be and what actually goes into building a body for a fast bowler. And as you know yourself, there's not always a guarantee that it's going to be held together for long periods of time, no matter what you do, sort of thing. So, give us a bit of an insight of what that's like and what the workloads and the training's like for a young fast bowler.
Yeah, so it's quite a rigorous one, to be fair. A lot of emphasis is now being put on the strength and conditioning side as well, which is really important because the game demands it now. The game's so taxing and so physical, especially if once you get to the professional level, if you're trying to play all three formats of the game. So the biggest part of that is to be as strong and as fit as you possibly can. We joke about it, but the fast bowlers are the ones that do the hardest work.
We've got to do everything, don't we?
Yeah, so it's like if you look at some of the GPS data, we're very fortunate that we've got guys that look at it all for us. But if you're playing 4-day cricket and you bowl 20 overs in each innings, across the game, you cover somewhere between 40 and 50 Ks. So it's quite a lot of time on legs, but quite a lot of work as well. So you got to put the effort in both on the training track and in the gym. But that aside, you also need to be bowling fit. So bowling fit and just being generally fit is so different because when you start bowling, you're using all the different muscles. Everything gets sore in different ways than you do. That you can't really stress that just running or just being in the gym. So it's a really good balance. So that's when we go through pre-season. The usual thing will start with a fitness block. So we might start with 4 to 6 weeks of pure running and gym work to get our bodies conditioned and starting to think about bowling. Because you don't want to jump straight into bowling on the back of doing no work because it's such a taxing exercise.
Yeah.
And that's something. So you build your base first and then you gradually continue to increase your bowling loads. And we'll start with things like sort of 6 overs a couple of times a week, 3 times a week. Then you gradually build up and up. And there's so many numbers that get thrown around. But something that I find really useful is if you can actually take a bit more ownership of how you feel your body's tracking. And in terms of workloads, like, yes, there might be a certain number of balls you can bowl per day. And especially going through the junior ranks, that's so important to adhere to those because there's been studies showing that so many times guys will break down being young because they get bowled into the ground.
Yeah.
But it's a case of making sure that when you're bowling, you're getting something out of it. There's no warm-up ball, so to speak. Like, you'll take some time to warm up, but even those balls can be very specific. You can be working on your wrist position, your seam position, little technical cues to get you going, those sort of things. And then once you get up to full speed, especially in a net scenario and obviously in a game, that's when you go hammer and tong and you're competing against the batter and you're doing everything you can to work him over and get him out.
Yeah, nice. And I guess from that, around leading into that, is there any particular advice for any young developing fast bowlers out there to be able to get to that point in becoming a good young fast bowler? Is there anything that you really think are massively important?
100%. The best thing for me is nail your stock ball. So for me, it's my in-swinger to the right-hander. So that's the ball I'll work on 90% of the time, because that's my banker. That's the one that I know 9 times out of 10 I'll execute, and whatever I need to do, if I'm in a pressure situation, that's what I'll go back to. So that's number one for me. And then as a bowler nowadays, especially with all the inventive shots the batters play, the way that there's no fear in the game anymore in that respect, they're able to do most things. To have your execution is the next thing. So make sure you practice your Yorkers and your bouncers, slower balls. Guys practice all different types of slower balls now. You might have seen a fair few guys around the world do lots of different things, whether it be like a knuckleball where you're sort of trying to claw the ball. Anything that you can do to even be a little bit inventive, try your own things to get an advantage on the batters.
Yeah, no. Can I jump in there, Jace? What are your thoughts? Obviously, your strength is swinging the ball. What are your thoughts on finding a balance between trying to bowl fast and trying to get the ball to swing? Because particularly at the elite level, it's kind of like it looks like there's a level that a certain pace you have to bowl to play at that level. What would your advice, like, how do you go about finding that balance?
Yeah, it's a good question, because especially a few years ago, people were sort of saying, oh, unless you bowl 140 plus, you're never going to play international cricket. And that's something that, if you look around the international game, there's a few guys that do bowl 140, 145 and 150, but there's only a handful that bowl super fast. So everybody else is doing something different with the ball. So that's the thing for me, that it just stands out, that if you can really hone your craft, whether it's seam bowling, whether it's swing bowling, whether you're an absolute out and out fast bowler. Again, I go back to executing your skills. If you can execute your skills, you can hit the lengths when you need to. All those sort of things make the difference. I think if you're trying to bowl as fast as you possibly can and you have no control over where the ball's going, that's not really going to be any good to anyone. So you need to find your niche and make sure that once you've found it, you do everything you can to own it.
Yeah, I like it.
Yeah, awesome. I think, I guess on top of that, you've flowed that really, really well into my next question, actually. It's more around setting fields and bowling plans. Like, were you aware of that at a young age? You know, our curriculum and what we do within our academies around our locations all around Australia, we speak about, the training with purpose, that when we develop, we talk about the 4 pillars: the technical, tactical, physical and mental. We place a really heavy emphasis on the tactical aspect and getting bowlers when they're in their nets to identify bowling plans, setting fields, even doing webinars like this with our batters and bowlers in terms of how do you set plans. What sort of advice around setting fields and bowling plans? And do you have a set structure on how you do that, or how you work out what you're going to do in the middle overs of the innings, or what field you're going to set at the death, or anything like that?
Yeah, so first part of that question, no, I didn't really have much tactical nous as a young cricketer. That's something probably only really in the last sort of 5 or 6 years have I really started to understand, one, the importance, but two, the actual gameplay side of it. And that sounds, I guess, interesting, knowing that I've been playing cricket for so long, and yet most of the time I just bowled the ball thinking, surely I'll just try and get him out.
Yeah.
And that's something now, looking back at it, that if you can pick that stuff up from an earlier age, it'll hold you in such good stead going forward. And the way I look at it, we're very fortunate now. There's so much video, so you can virtually see anything you want on any batter in the world. But the plans for me are generally quite simple. So I'll start the innings in a one-day game. We'll talk about white ball cricket for now, and that's very a simple plan for me to start with. You challenge the forward defence of the batter. You're really looking to make them play as many balls as possible in that first 10 overs, because that's when, obviously, you've got a brand new ball. That's the time it's going to swing the most. That's the time you're going to get the most out of it. And if you can make early inroads, then suddenly the opposition team might be 2 or 3 for not many, and you're into the middle order in the first 10, and suddenly it's really starting to steamroll and get the ball rolling. And then as you look to progress to the middle overs, that's when that's when the game can sort of drift a little bit. But as bowlers, it's our job not to let the game drift, really to try and drive the game from there, whatever situation is happening in the game, to do your best to either keep the momentum or wrangle it back. So the thing I learned, especially over the last probably 12 months playing with the Australian cricket team, is that obviously at the international level, the batters are extremely good. And you've got to think of different ways to sort of outsmart them or to go about things. And that's where field settings to me really took probably to the next level. Thinking about changing fields, you don't necessarily need to bowl a different ball, but if you change the field, then suddenly the batter's thinking, oh, is he going to bowl a different ball? Why has he changed the field? Instead of just bowling with the same field, the same ball all the time, a little change, one or the other, whether it's a different ball or a different field, can make a huge difference.
Yeah.
And so that's something for me. Even in the IPL, Mitch McClenaghan spoke a lot about that to me, being a fellow left armer, is just doing something different. Whether it be, instead of having a third man back, have a deep point, a deep cover and a long off, and hit your wide Yorker. Because if you hit a wide Yorker, generally it's going to be a dot ball. So again, you back your execution. But if you miss, the chances of it going to third man, a big edge, that's probably the only way it's getting there. If they slash it, it'll go to backward point. So those are the things, and having conversations around different field settings. And the biggest thing for me is thinking about the batter in terms of where you want him to hit the ball. So if you're going to bowl a wide Yorker and you execute that wide Yorker, where's the ball going to go? So that's where you set your field for. And then there's been a lot of talk over the years. They're like, oh, but we need an extra man out wherever it might be. And you think, well, are you setting that up for if you miss? Where are you more likely to get hit? And you need to think about having the fielders in the right positions. And yeah, if you get it wrong and you go for a boundary, that's what happens. But sometimes you get it right and you go for a boundary as well. So you just need to make sure that you're thinking all the time and that your field setting generally match up to where you want the ball to go.
Nice. Love it.
What are your biggest tips, Jace, for actually swinging the ball? What do you think the most important things are?
Well, there's a few things. Wrist position being one of them. It's such an essential thing. And I feel personally, for me, when I'm swinging the ball really late and I feel like everything's going really well, my wrist is right behind the ball. And it also finishes that last little touch on my middle finger. I can almost feel it come off that middle finger. So I'm getting every last little bit of contact right behind the ball. The other one is your seam position as well. So with swing bowling, sometimes you can just have the seam upright and it might swing, but the angle of the seam can be very important. And then also your technique. For me, that's a big part of it as well. Whether you're an in-swing or an out-swing bowler is generally quite predisposed to the action that you've got. There's not too many guys that can swing the ball brilliantly both ways. The one that comes to mind is James Anderson. He's an absolute freak at it, can do it at will, at good pace. But a lot of guys, myself included, will swing the ball one way predominantly, and the one that goes the other way, or at least holds the line, is your variation.
Yeah.
Nice.
Awesome.
Let's get stuck into a couple of we've got a heap of questions popping in now. I'll start off with one from Blake Tunison, I think. He said, who was your biggest idol growing up?
For me, I had a couple. The first one being Glenn McGrath. As a fast bowler, watching him do his thing was, well, as they say, poetry in motion, really. He hit the length every time he needed to. And I think he epitomised fast bowling to me. And then I was very fortunate, actually, to have my one-day cap presented by him. So that was a real honour as well. And then the other guy that I loved watching growing up was Wazim Akram. Being a left arm, quick, and he swung the ball better than most. So yeah, chatting to those guys over the course of my career has been really beneficial, and yeah, I love watching those two growing up.
Nice.
Just on that, on getting your cap presented, there's been quite a few questions that I've seen just asking about what it was actually like playing for Australia and standing at the top of your mark, opening the bowling in the World Cup and things like that?
Yeah, it's I'm actually getting a few goosebumps thinking about it now. Like, to play for my country is something that I've wanted to do ever since I was a little kid, and I'm very fortunate to have done that. And obviously, quite recently played in a World Cup, which I think the baggy green and playing in a Cricket World Cup are probably the two things any young cricketer would want to do. And yeah, to play cricket for Australia in a World Cup at Lords, open the bowling, was one of the best experiences I've ever had in my life. And yeah, looking back at it, it's something I'll cherish forever, and it means the world to me to be able to play cricket for Australia.
Yeah, pretty special feeling, I would have thought.
Yeah, unreal. Well done, mate.
Yeah. From Luke Howard, what do you do when you have a bad day, and how do you turn it around? Probably a pretty good one, I think.
Yeah, that's a really good one. And that's something that I definitely struggled a lot with early in my career, is my body language would generally slump if I'd had a bad spell or whatever it might have been. And you could sort of tell, you'd see me down at fine leg and I'd probably have my head down a bit, not really paying as much attention, and just sort of thinking way too much about what I was trying to do as opposed to staying in the contest and doing what I could to get better and get back. So the biggest thing for me is, yeah, not letting either one ball, one over, or one spell affect your day. And the way I tend to do that is try and stay up in the contest. So whether it be in the field, keep the chat up, keep chatting to your mates. That's one of the best things about being in the field with 10 of your best mates, is you've always got someone to chat to, especially when you're bowling or you're at mid-on, mid-off. Generally, the bowlers are at mid-on and mid-off, and you can bounce ideas off each other and just keep each other going. Something that was really beneficial for me recently throughout some of the Aussie stuff was having Marcus Stoinis at mid-off. So Stoin and I have worked a fair bit together here in WA, and actually, like, he'd just say to me, just relax, focus on your cues. So I had a couple of cues for me, which was stay tall and swing the ball. And he just said, keep going back to that. Just keep focusing on those little things and keeping your mind in the present. So those things help me stay relaxed, focused on what I need to do, and suddenly I'm not thinking about anything else.
Yeah, awesome. I've grouped a couple together from just scanning through the chat. There's been a couple asking who the hardest batsman, international or state batsman, you bowled to, and also who's the best captain you've played under in your time.
Yeah, very good ones. Hardest bloke to bowl to, Virat Kohli comes to mind. He's pretty tough to bowl to. Also, Steve Smith, haven't bowled to him in too many games of recent times, but bowling him to in the nets, he's on a different level to everyone else. It's almost like he's toying with you half the time. I remember bowling a bouncer to him in one of the training sessions at the World Cup, and he ducked under it and he just looked at me and said, "Well bowled, son, nice one, now go and bowl it again." I said, "Oh, righto, mate, no worries." So those two, yeah, probably the toughest to bowl to. And then, sorry, what was the other part of the question there, Nick?
Who's the best captain you've played under?
Yeah, Adam Voges. Yeah, Adam Voges to me was the best one. I'm fortunate to play quite a bit of cricket under him here in WA. He's now our coach, so he's probably pretty stoked I'm saying that, give him a little bit of a pump up. But he always knew where the game was going. He was one step ahead of the game most of the time. And he always knew the best way to get the best out of each individual. So that's something, to me, those two things, tactical nous, but also knowing how to get your players performing at their best with the massive qualities from V that stood him out.
Love it. I've got one here. It's actually close-ish to home for you in your region. Anyway, Caleb Rogerson, he says he's a left arm quick, and next year he'll be playing districts for Melville. And he's also got 3 other left arm fast bowlers.
Yeah, brilliant.
He said not all of us will get picked for each game. And this is a general thing as well. What are your top 3 tips, or what are your tips to attract the eye of selectors?
Yeah, so the big thing being a left armer is that you're swinging the ball. That's something that in any form of cricket, if you can swing the ball and you swing the ball consistently, everyone will keep looking at you. Generally speaking, from my experiences anyway, the guys that swing the ball are the ones that the coaches and the selectors really want to look at, because they're the ones that can change the game. So that's number one. And number two is consistency. So your lengths are so important, and making sure that you can execute those lengths. So that being Yorker, length ball and bouncer, executing those on wheel. That's really important as well.
Very nice. A few other questions as well. This is, I reckon you've probably told this story a fair few times, but Ryan Royce asks, you bowled an amazing Yorker to James Vince in the World Cup and got him bowled. How did you bowl it, and what were your thoughts behind it?
Yeah, so bowled it the same way. I'll bowl my normal in swinger. So I don't have a cricket ball near me, but standard grip for me. So fingers slightly off the centre of the seam pointing down towards fine leg. Making sure that I was looking to bowl the ball, not just put it there. And that's something that I fell in the trap of early days, is that I was trying to swing it. I was trying to put it down there and trying to swing it, as opposed to actually bowling it, ripping down the back of the ball and letting the ball do the work. So those were the big things for me: holding nice position, nice relaxed wrist, bowl the ball. And initially, I might have actually said this a few times before, but initially when I let it go, I thought, oh no, that's too full. I thought it was just going to be a half volley. He was going to smack it through the covers or straight back past me for four. But as it kept going, and then it swung nice and late. Nice gap between bat and pad, and yeah, I've watched those highlights a couple of times, I must admit.
No, mate, that's how your story walking. Very nice.
Nice. What? Quite a few have actually asked what your favourite ground is to play at, mate, around the world, or it might be at home.
Yeah, there's a couple. So very fortunate to make my debut Shield cricket for WA. I made my debut at the MCG. So to play there is unbelievable. I would love to play there in front of 50, 60, 100,000 people. That'd be surreal. But the other one that comes to mind is playing at Lords. That's a really special place to play cricket. Watching cricket ever since I was a little boy, and sort of knowing the aura around the ground doesn't really quite hit you until you actually go there, and especially the slope. I thought, the slope on TV, you're like, oh yeah, it might be a little bit of a camber, but it's about 2.5 meters difference from side to side. So it's actually quite noticeable when you're out there, and bowling at the different ends as well. So bowling at the nursery end as opposed to the change room end, the pavilion end is quite different. So that's something as well that's really unique to Lords, and which is really a quirk, but it's really cool as well.
And had you bowled at Lords previously before that World Cup game?
No, so I'd never actually been to Lords before ever.
You wouldn't have been able to be out there. Like, they didn't have the nets on the slope or anything. It was literally the first time you got that ball in your hand. That first ball was how you had to adapt straight away.
Yeah, that's exactly right. So we trained out the back, but no, nothing on the ground. Obviously, in the warm-ups, we bowled a little bit on the ground in the warm-ups, but apart from that, no, that was the first one. Very nice.
Mate, you've obviously had a fairly treacherous run with injuries, and a few of the kids are asking, like, what's your mindset around that? Have you got any advice for young players in terms of rehab and coming back from injury, both physically and mentally?
Well, the biggest bit of advice I can give is that at the end of the day, it's all worth it. All those hard, long hours that I spent in the rehab gym trying to get fit again. You play that game for Australia, you take that wicket, the ball you've always been trying to bowl. Those are the things that make it all worthwhile. But in saying that, don't get me wrong, there's been some really, really tough and really dark days. It's not easy. It's not easy going through setbacks, especially repeated setbacks. So I had stress fractures 4 times in my back in the same spot. And it's, some days it can really, really get you down, and you don't really feel like getting out of bed or doing anything. And that's where, for me in particular, having good people to chat to. I like to speak and get things off my chest, and that helps me feel better, getting that weight off my shoulders. So I think the biggest thing going through those periods of frustration and uncertainty are having close people to you that you can confide in, or alternatively find whatever works for you, whether it be listening to some mindfulness, listening to podcasts, going for a walk, things that you can do that are in your control. And again, for me, focusing on the things that I can control as opposed to things I can't was so important.
Love it.
Yeah, awesome, mate. And where are you at now? You're fit and healthy?
Yeah, going well now. So taking a little bit of a low-key break at the moment. Obviously, with everything going on, there's not any cricket happening, and actually using a bit of this downtime to spend it at home with my family. And I've got a little boy now who's 2. So actually, doing a fair bit with him. He's at a fun age to run around with and do a few things, albeit mostly in the backyard.
Very nice. Peter, I think it's Peter Tanya Baker on our Facebook stream. They've asked, how do you keep your mind focused when a batter is going to town off your bowling? So how do you stay composed, or how do you get out of that situation?
Yeah, that can be a tough one, because obviously no one likes to get taken down. But for me, it's about staying in the present and knowing what plan you're trying to execute. So that for me, as opposed to playing or bowling on emotion and going, oh, that went for 6, I'm going to rush back to my mark, I'm going to bowl this one faster or harder or whatever it might be, actually take a split second and go the other way, slow things down, take a couple of extra breaths, maybe have a joke or a chat to the bloke at mid-off, just say, what do you think? Have you seen anything? This is what I'm thinking. And then once you've decided what you're going to do, you've gone with your plan, you've decided what you want to go with, back yourself to execute it. So if you've been towed up the couple balls before, or the over before, that's gone. You can't do anything about that now. But what you can do is learn from it. And then ideally, if you can probably assess in a couple of ways. You can say, number 1, did I execute? Yes or no? And if you did, you say, well, the batter's obviously played a good shot or he's got out of it somehow. Or number 2, have I not executed? If you haven't, then what can you do better or differently next time? And so those are the quick ones on the fly. You can quickly run through your brain and ideally get it right or change it up for the next ball.
Yeah, brilliant. Guys, we might start drawing to an end. I know Joel's got a couple of questions just to finish off. I'm going to go one more question from you guys. I'm going to make it a surprise. And I'm going to bring someone on live to ask their question to Dorff. Criteria, you've got to be a left-arm bowler, you've got to be a massive Dorff fan, and you've got to be on a computer with a camera. So if that's you and you want to come on and ask your question, just raise your hand and I'll here they go. I'm just going to randomly
I hope you're
select someone.
keeping track of this, Nick, because it's going bonkers here for me.
I'm just going to pick someone I like. Will Arnott, on you come. Let's see if it works. Where's your camera, Will? There he is.
Hello.
There he is. Hey, Will.
How are you, mate?
I'm good, thank you. Hold on, let's turn my background off.
Whereabouts are you from?
I'm from Melbourne.
Melbourne, nice, mate. And you're a left-arm bowler?
Yep.
Good to hear. Rightio, fire away, mate. What's your question?
All right. So I have trouble getting enough bounce in my bounces. How could I help that?
So a big one for me when bowling the short ball is actually the importance of your front arm. So making sure you pull down really hard with your right arm to get that ball as short as you need it to be. And also you're trying to bowl your bouncer a little bit faster than your stock ball. So really give it everything you've got.
Okay. Thank you.
I hope you take it.
Good stuff. Well done, Wilbur.
Thank you.
All right. Well, that was pretty good. Great question, great answer. I guess from our perspective, as we said, we don't want to take up a heap more of your time. The one thing that we we sort of asked Shorty, and we had conversations with, is how are you actually spending your time in isolation at the moment currently? And then, what, I guess, from an opportunity here for players to develop their game still in an environment which might not be batting and bowling, and how do you think they can best harness that?
So still certainly finding ways to keep busy. Touched on it a little bit before. Having a 2-year-old doesn't give us too much free time.
Yeah.
But the other things, we've actually had some little home DIY projects. So a few things around the house, getting that sorted. But very fortunate to have a little bit of gym equipment at home as well. So keeping fit that way, making sure that I'm still doing a little bit, ticking over while I can. But the other thing for me that I've really been focusing a lot on, because I'm not doing a huge amount of bowling per se, is actually the meditation, mindfulness type side of that. So little things like just lying down on the grass in my backyard and visualizing coming into bowl, what I want to try and execute, trying to have all those feelings of standing at the top of my mark in the World Cup again. Those amazing feelings, keep harnessing that and going back to those things to really have those positive vibes and positive experiences for me that will really continue to help me ring true and know that when I get back to playing cricket, I'll be firing and ready to go again.
Yeah, I love it. Like you said, I think it's an opportunity. And we speak about, we spoke to the guys and the girls before this program started on Monday. And our academy, we have a massive mindset around, and you've attested to that. Cricket's more than just bowling a ball and hitting the ball. Your ability to be consistent, make decisions, handle pressure, adapt, those things, and also be taught and learned, not by just standing in the nets and bowling the ball to the back of the net. So really, really thank you very much for your time, mate, and taking your time out. And yeah, we're all going to be rooting for you. Hopefully the start of the season, and want to see you back in the green and gold very shortly.
Yeah, I'm
Thank
a
you,
massive
Lars.
fan, swinging it around. Love it.
That's
Good luck,
cheers,
mate.
guys.
Thanks.
Appreciate it.
very good.
Cheers.
Thanks, mate. Cheers, and we will speak soon. Thanks again.
Thanks for jumping
No
on,
worries.
everyone. Have a good night.
Thanks, guys. Have a good one.
See you.
See you guys.